Hey, how you doing? It's the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central. Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, and STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. A 12-2 victory for your Redbirds last night over the Chicago White Sox, a.k.a. the Shy Sox.
Oh,
now it's Rate Field. It used to be guaranteed Rate Field. Now it just says Rate Field.
Whatever happened to the Pale Hose? I like the
Pale
old.
Hose is good too.
Okay, I like the old school nicknames.
White Sox, Pale Hose. Yeah,
I like that.
And the Reds used to be known as the Red Legs. A little bit of trivia for you there. Hey, by the way, 10:45. We're going to do a quiz. You need to put some thought into this, all of yous. So the question
Don't
is,
yell at them.
Yeah, no. So the question is this, and this is why you need to put some thought, because I put a little, but not enough. But the question is going to be, and save it till 10:45 when we're going to chat. Do your research. Is Matthew Tkachuk closing in on becoming the most decorated athlete ever in St. Louis? Not best athlete, not most. Well, maybe it is most. Let's go with most accomplished and decorated. Is Matthew Tkachuk, with the win in the Stanley Cup last night, becoming the most decorated or accomplished athlete in the history of St. Louis sports? That's going to be our question at 10:45.
All righty then.
But we're going to start with this. Matthew Liberatore appears to be back after the one game where he had to leave with a little bit of fatigue. He gave you 6 innings, allowed 2 runs on 5 hits, struck out 4, didn't walk anybody, and you had to like what you saw from Matthew Liberatore last night. Okay, qualifier was against the White Sox, but still, I still like it.
Thank you very much for pointing out. Yes, not a very one of the, if not the worst lineup from top to bottom in Major League Baseball, and he sets them down exactly what you wanted to see from him. The command, the ability to strike people out without ever really being worried about him walking and putting on easy batters. Just a solid outing from Matthew Liberatore. I'm sure there's some people out there who are saying, against the worst lineup in the league, I don't want to see even 2 earned runs. But honestly, it was good stuff. There are people out there like that. I just know there are. It was good stuff from Liberatore and a solid game overall from the St. Louis Cardinals.
I always like to make this point. Yes, they are the worst team in the league, but I will give you a statistic right now.
They do also get paid to play baseball, and they do win
They're on
games.
scholarship too.
Yeah, they're on scholarship too.
Since 1876 when Major League Baseball started.
I like this.
There have been a lot of people in our world, like billions and billions and billions of men, more than millions, billions. Okay, out of all of those men, I'm not even including women because
what years is
they
it?
don't play Major League. First game I think was 1776.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, for Major League Baseball, right?
1776.
Yeah, or 1876. Sorry, 1876. Yeah, because their 100-year anniversary was 1976. And then remember when the Cardinals had those stovepipe caps for 1976? Check it out, Google. But anyway, in all of that time, 23,508 people have donned a Major League jersey and been in a game. 23,508. You could half fill Busch Stadium with every Major League Baseball player that ever lived. So don't give me, they're the worst ever and they don't count. The worst ever is still pretty darn good. And
they are pretty bad though.
But so to say you shouldn't allow 2 runs to a group of major leaguers is ridiculous.
Exactly. It was a solid outing from Liberatore again. For him, it's always going to be about control, his ability to hit the edges without throwing balls, because the strikeout numbers are never going to be high. But if you're pairing 5 or 6 strikeouts consistent with only 1 walk, it doesn't matter how high your strikeout numbers are, you can control lineups. And that's what we're seeing right now from Matthew Liberatore.
But the key last night was scoring the dozen runs. Scored a dozen, cousin, and getting everybody 60-cent drinks today at Mobile on the Run. But Brendan Donovan, leadoff hitter, getting back to where he was as a rookie, getting on base. Last night, though, goes 4 for 5, 21st double, had a chance for a 5-hit night, and looked very comfortable in the leadoff spot. And then the other guys, Herrera with a 4 RBI game, had a home run stolen away from him by, is it Michael A. Tucker? I believe it is. And man, that was a great catch. Had a couple of 2-run singles, though. Burly 3 for 5, hit his first home run of the season off of a lefty, and Wilson Contreras stole home.
Okay, so lot there to unpack. Donnie being able to hit from anywhere and everywhere is huge. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can just move him up and still potentially get 300 from him in the leadoff spot, after Newbar struggles,
Yep.
that would be absolutely monumental. The fact that
the moment, Brendan Donovan, your best leadoff hitter, your best number 2 hitter,
Jesus.
your best number 3 hitter, and probably your best number 5 hitter.
That's probably not a good thing in the long run, is it?
It just says a lot about him.
Okay, fair enough. I was trying to make it maybe a takeaway from the Cardinals on that one. Probably not the best, but the fact that you're getting solid hitting again from Ivan Herrera, who has two different 2 RBI singles, or two different 2 RBI singles, yes, to extend the lead across the game. Getting consistent hitting from Ivan Herrera now in that 3 spot as you shift things around, that's going to be huge going forward.
And we kind of talked about it yesterday, getting the youngsters higher up in the lineup. And I really like that top 3. I think that they have, if you keep them in there, I think that group has a chance to be really good. I'm intrigued by what Ollie put together last night.
We get a chat here from Mason Windu. Can Donovan beat out Ketel Marte for this NL second base all-star spot? It's a weird thing, apparently, that like the Cardinals fans are actually like, we're bad at all-star voting, apparently. Like it's been like the last 2 or 3 years, apparently we've been bad at all-star voting, which kind of lines up with interest. But apparently the Cardinals are struggling to get a second baseman playing Gold Glove defense and batting 300 into the first spot of the all-star voting, which does seem a little odd.
Well, and I know that we're looking at this half of a season, and Donovan's a really good player. But Ketel Marte, he was in the MVP conversation last year. He's a hell of a player. I don't think that if the Cardinals offer Brendan Donovan to Mike Hazen for Ketel Marte, I don't think that Hazen would take it.
Ketel Marte better this year than he was last year in a lot of the numbers. His average is a little bit lower, but his OBP is higher. His slug's a little bit lower. His OPS is higher, and his OPS plus has gone from 155 to 160. God, Ketel Marte has really developed into one hell of a player.
He's a really good player, and they just signed him to a big-time contract. Now, who's the nicer guy? Because you look at the way Brendan Donovan treats Jim the Cat Hayes on the postgame. Brendan Donovan's clearly one of the nicest people in the world, and that would lead me to believe that more of us should vote for Brendan Donovan. Go to Cardinals.com and vote.
There you go. Cole Bassett's left foot. I missed the actual paper MLB All-Star ballot. You could just pick up at the ballpark. Punched out your votes, some hanging Chad.
I loved it.
It was beautiful.
I loved it, and I miss it too. I'm with you. Now we all have to take our phones to the ballpark and vote while we're sitting in the stands. But I'm with you, Cole Bassett's left foot. It's a great call. So anyway, let's get back to the Cardinals last night. I agree with you on Herrera. But, okay, so did you – and I had a different looking lineup. But do you like that Donovan win Herrera as your top 3? I'm
cool with it. Yeah, I say roll with it. For me, it gives you the optimal profile of the hitter you want for each spot. And while maybe you do not like the lefty left right aspect of it, maybe.
I'm more apt to not like when you have back-to-back lefties.
Okay.
Lefties have trouble. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know why it is. But lefties have more trouble with left-handed pitchers than right-handed hitters have with right-handed pitchers.
Yeah, so and I like how it works. I mean, it means that Burleson's batting 5th now so that you have lefty, then 3 righties, then a lefty. I like how it works out. I would say maybe you could flip around the 3-4-5 in any configuration you'd want. If you wanted to go Donovan, Wynn, Burleson, Herrera, Contreras, I think that would make a lot of sense as well.
Where's Gorman?
That's a big question people ask. Before we get to Gorman, though, I do want to, because we're going to talk about a player and the splits and things like that. You mentioned it, and I do want to talk about this for just a moment, which was Alec Burleson hitting his first home run of the year off a lefty. It was the lefty reliever later in the game for the White Sox, his first home run against lefties. And now I was looking at his full season split, and he's batting .307 against righties and .300 against lefties, which I did not expect. He's 7 for 14, 7 for his last 14 against lefties, including just hitting that home run. If Alec Burleson doesn't have bad lefty-righty splits, that's huge going forward, because it was just 2 weeks ago when Ali Marmol was quoted by Derek Gould in the Post-Dispatch talking about how they could play Jordan Walker every day before his injury because his righty splits were fine, but they were probably looking at having to platoon a guy like Alec Burleson because at the time his lefty splits were completely broken. He has obviously turned that around, whether that's a him thing or a coaching thing or a combination of the two. That potentially changes the equations that we've been talking about over the last 2 days of the log jam and how you find at bats for different players, for lefty, righty, position here, position there.
And one thing about Burleson, and last night his last hit in the 8th inning was an example of this. He really does have the best bat to ball skills on the team. Donovan is right there with him. But one thing they know about Burleson is that wherever the pitch is, he can hit it. And he's great at fouling pitches off. He's great at working the count. And obviously, as you saw, he can even hit the ball hard when the pitch is at his neck. He's a really good hitter. And it doesn't matter really who's pitching to him. Now, when you look at strikeouts, I'm looking at strikeouts per 9. He's actually he just does not strike out. He struck out 30 times this season in 217 plate appearances. He's pretty darn good. And my comp was to Brendan Donovan. He struck out 39 in 287 plate appearances. And by the way, if we want to go to a little bit more advanced hitting, let me move down to the advanced strikeout percentage is really good. And the team doesn't strike out a lot, but I'm a big fan of the way Donovan gets his bat on the ball. And I mentioned this on the TV show this morning. I feel bad for Ollie Marmol because he really does, in terms of trying to evaluate these players, he doesn't have enough at-bats to be able to properly evaluate everybody, because if he did, then Nolan Gorman would have been in the lineup last night as well.
And that was another thing that people were obviously very miffed about yesterday. It was, as soon as the lineup came out, you saw a lot of the conversations that continued throughout the game. Why wasn't Gorman in the lineup versus a righty starter when he has been on such a hot tear? To an STL Sports Central tweet that we put out yesterday, he is leading the Cardinals in pretty much every offensive category in the month of June.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a very high bar to clear necessarily, because the lineup has struggled at times. But you look at the Junes of Herrera, Contreras, and Burleson, it's not that low of a bar to clear either. So Gorman has been hitting the ball since June. Really, if you go back to the second week of May, he has been hitting the ball and just not there in the lineup for what seemed like a meaty chance.
And I get where they're coming from. The heck, they scored 12 runs. So it wasn't wrong the way things were constituted. And here's the thing. When we talk about runway and observation and growth, one of the things that I take out of last night, and I'll ask Ollie about this weekend, is maybe if you're sitting a guy like Gorman, you've got a better idea, because of what he's done in June, of what he's capable of than you have of Nootbaar. Nootbaar got off to the great start, and really for 2 months now has not been very good. And I wonder if the Cardinals are saying to themselves, we need to find out more about Nootbaar than Gorman.
That seems short-sighted in my opinion.
You aren't trying to win. So
yeah, that seems short-sighted, because it seems like Lars Nootbaar is a more important player for this season because of his utility as an outfielder, his defense, the fact that he can give you a 750 OPS while giving you good defense. You're not choosing between the two things. You shouldn't be. Obviously, he's struggling right now, but you shouldn't be. I think that's a short-sighted decision by the Cardinals.
Well, if that is their decision, but I don't think it is, because I think one of the things you want to find out about Nootbaar is what he does over the course of a lot of games, because he's never been a guy to play a lot of games. And one thing that we don't think about a lot, over the course of a season, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, travel, playing every day, eventually the game does catch up to you, especially now. It didn't as much in the figure from 1995 to 2004. Didn't catch up to players as much, but it does now. And maybe they want to see what Lars Nootbaar does when he gets a little bit fatigued. Now, are you finding out about Gorman at that in the same situation? No, but I think there's a lot that the Cardinals need to find out about, more than just, okay, can he play every day for me? And can he become more consistent and adjust to adjustments? The other part of this is, can he play 6 months for me?
I think that's a big factor. And I don't want to pivot completely off the Nolan Gorman or the Nootbaar conversation, but you bringing up Nootbaar as part of the Gorman conversation, I need to bring in this from Derek Gould's piece on STLToday.com today, which is, because you're talking about Nootbaar and the connection, the tether to the Gorman conversation is that you could have started Gorman yesterday at second base and played Donovan at left field.
You could have done that.
But here's this little line from Gould's piece that jumped out to me because of that line of thought. Marmol said he's seen a benefit in how Donovan played defensively by starting at second base and the consistency that comes with knowing each day where he's going to play. So I think that right there is telling us why we didn't see that exact change, because it makes total sense. Get the righty killer in there, and Nolan Gorman. Lars Nootbaar has been struggling. Give him another day off, and that's the configuration to get there. But apparently, we're now seeing that another factor in all of this discussions about the logjam is that they don't want to do one of the few things they can do to open up spots. They don't want to move Brendan Donovan from second base to left field, which has been for the last few months one of the things we keep using as a way to open up that spot for Nolan Gorman. Apparently, they don't want to do that, which will then lead us to the conversation that the chat's having. And speaking of the chat, let's dive in a little bit here.
Yeah, I want to Cole Bassett's left foot. Nationals manager Dave Martinez defending his coaching staff, stating that the team struggles, quote, are never on coaching. If that was absolutely 100% unequivocally true, then managers and coaches would never get fired, would they? But they do, and we have some concrete evidence here in St. Louis because we've had several Hall of Fame managers that had players that played better for them than they played anyplace else. And I would suggest that especially Whitey Herzog and Tony La Russa were coaches and or managers, and they had staffs that did make players better. If it's never on coaching, that means that every coach is the same, right? That there's not a best coach and a worst coach. And there are best coaches and worst coaches. And so I would disagree with Davey Martinez, who maybe is just trying to save his job.
Yeah, it seems like he might be saving his job a little bit. Eddie Grant coming in on the Facebook here. And if you are watching on Facebook, make sure you switch over to the YouTube broadcast. I'll put the link up here in just a moment because we will be switching over to YouTube only after the first 30 minutes or so of the show. So you got about 10 minutes to grab that link and switch on over. Eddie Grant, Gorman should start every game. Herrera would have to catch, but it is worth it. Gorman is our hottest hitter, and he has done it before. 27 and 19 homers his first 2 years with limited plate appearances. Last year was an anomaly. He is back. And off that point, Smooth Productions, this is further proof that Arenado is blocking opportunities for guys like Gorman. And if Nootbaar doesn't consistently provide good at-bats, he could be blocking talent as well. So because we now know that second base apparently isn't as open as we thought, we have to dive back into the conversation we were having yesterday, which is the point where you start giving third base at bats to Nolan Gorman.
I think that they would have liked to have done that. Are they playing the contract and are they pacifying the player? Yes. Now, if you talk, and here's my thing, I consider my part of my job. Obviously, I give you really red hot takes, but at the end of the day, what I want to do is be the conduit to the people that are watching and listening to the shows that I'm on. I am a fan with access. And so I get an opportunity to talk to the manager and the coaches and the front office. And I have not run into anybody in the Cardinal organization who didn't want to be able to move Nolan Arenado. They all wanted to be able to move Arenado, but he had turned down the trade. He invoked the no trade. And so that's why they have him, because they wanted to do what you want to do. They wanted to play Gorman. But now that you're in this spot, you're kind of in a political game in Major League Baseball, because Nolan Arenado is a Hall of Famer who's got the contract and earned the contract. And I know he's in a decline that's been referenced here, but he's not the kind of guy at this stage of his career that you just say, okay, we're going to bench you for a younger player. He's not to that level of bad yet. And he might get there, but he's not there yet. And I think politically, not only with the Cardinals, but with other players in Major League Baseball, you can't bench Nolan Arenado.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. But then going forward, because let's move this from them only playing Arenado because of the money and the contract and the heft of that player. And let's move to another part of the conversation where I think is material, which is, can they continue to afford? Now, we've already had the conversation that we agree this team should be run prevention forward.
Yep.
And that's why Pedro Pajes at catcher makes more sense than finding out other ways to get offense, including Ivan Herrera into the catcher spot.
Yeah, I don't even consider Herrera as a catcher.
Okay, so going forward, can the team continue to prioritize defense over offense completely at two positions, being both catcher and third base? So just take out the contract sides of things. And does it make sense for the Cardinals to give Nolan Gorman more at bats at third base, knowing that would mean a significant drop because of the fact that we're getting Gold Glove level defense again from Nolan Arenado? So take away the money aspect, just focus on we're talking about a run prevention team, prioritizing that aspect. Is there a point where they can't get away with playing two defensive forward players in Pages and Arenado?
I look at it differently because I look at defense up the middle
Mm-hmm.
as imperative, defense on the corners as important, but not as important.
Okay.
When you have great platinum level defense at third base, it's a great bonus, and it does help you win games. But can you win a World Series with third baseman, the defensive quality of Max Muncy playing for you over there? Yeah, you can. Can you get to a World Series, and probably should have won a World Series, with Jack Clark giving you the quality of defense that he played at first base? Yeah, we know that. He's proven that. It's nice. It's a nice bonus to have great defense at the corners, but it's not an imperative. I believe it is an imperative, if you're going to win, to have great defense behind the plate, at shortstop, at second base, and in center field. I think you build defensively up the middle. I think there's a dramatic difference between having a far inferior catcher and maybe an average third baseman. So I think you can play Gorman at third and expect to be competitive and win long term. I don't think that long term you can win with Ivan Herrera behind the plate. You can obviously win with his defense elsewhere. You can win with his bat. But Craig Biggio was not a very good defensive catcher. He got moved, wound up in center field, wound up playing second base. Dale Murphy was not a great defensive catcher, winds up getting moved to center field. Todd Zeile was not a very good defensive catcher, but the bat played, so they moved him to third base. Joe Torry wound up not being a very good catcher anymore, got moved to third base, won an MVP. You can do that. You can move people that are declining to other positions, especially corner positions. But I think if you're going to do that, you have to replace the guys up the middle with superior talent. Pedro Pages is a superior defensive talent.
And so let's bring this conversation full around. You think that the majority of this is both a in the moment decision for Nolan Arenado, but also a long-term way of showing how this organization handles veteran players?
Yeah. Well, yeah, how they handle veteran players and how much they care about defense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when we're talking about playing Herrera behind the plate, one of the reasons the Cardinals are better this year than they were 2 years ago, they had one of the worst defenses in the league when they won 71 games. Defense was a huge part of them losing as much as they did 2 years ago. Did we get spoiled by Yadier Molina? We did. They didn't realize the value of Yadier Molina. We've talked a lot about Wilson Contreras on this show. And one of the problems the Cardinals had the year they won 71 games is their defense behind the plate. Well, now he's at first base, right? And he's got a big stick for you. We all love Ivan Herrera, and we know he needs to be in the lineup, just not behind the plate. Now, to the other point here, veteran players, great veteran players that said to their other team, I only want to go to St. Louis. Okay, this is a guy that has committed himself to St. Louis on multiple occasions. He came here and he's had 3 different opportunities to leave and said, no, I like St. Louis. I think it's a really bad look for the rest of the players in Major League Baseball if the team says, yeah, we appreciate that you really wanted to play here, but we have no use for you anymore. I just think that that's a really, unless you're going to get him to a place where he's happy, and probably the bench is not a place that makes him happy, I think that you really have to be careful. Because players do talk and agents do talk, and perception is a big thing. One of the reasons that the Giants have until now in going out and getting an Adames as a free agent this year, and Matt Chapman was stuck. That's why they got him as a free agent last year. But they went after Judge, they went after Harper, they went after Ohtani, but the perception was bad there. And it's changed now, obviously, with Buster Posey in charge.
And I like your take here because there's a reality factor that you're acknowledging, which is, in a way, playing Nolan Arenado does also help your future. And I think that there's some nuance there that I don't think a lot of people would expect. And I think fans are going to hear your initial response that essentially Nolan Arenado is going to continue to keep playing, more so because of non-baseball
It's
factors.
Political. It's political in contracts.
People,
it's part of the game, though.
People are going to hear that and react poorly. But then when you think about everything we've talked about and the conversations we've had about making St. Louis a destination, if you need to sign a big free agent to push you over the hump in 2027, maybe how you handle Nolan Arenado in 2025 is going to be material to that decision. And so you might not like it because, yes, it does mean less at bats for Nolan Gorman. But in another way, this is a long-term play. And I like that way of looking at it. I think it's a realistic, not just baseball reasons, but a business baseball way to look at this decision making.
Okay, a couple of things happened. Let me give you a little timeline. The Cardinals were not a destination for a long time. The DeWitts kind of had to overpay when they first bought the franchise and brought in Ron Gant and Andy Benes. Their second year, they get McGuire, right? And McGuire does all of this great stuff for him. He loves it here so much after being acquired in July that he signs a contract to stay in September. Signs a 4-year deal for way less than market value, 4-year, $28 million deal. And the Cardinals got a hometown discount. Then they go out and they trade for Darryl Kyle, signs for less than market value. They get Jim Edmonds, signs for less than market value. They get Edgar Renteria, signs long-term for less than market value. Matheny, he lived here, so he was going to sign for less than market value. Vina signs a long-term contract for less than market value. You're getting these hometown discounts. Ultimately, you wind up with Roland as well. And ultimately, well, they didn't really get a hometown discount for Matt Holliday, but just that group of people, because Mark McGuire said, this is baseball heaven. Okay. So fast forward 2011. During that 2011 season, actually before the 2011 season, winter of 2011, Albert Pujols says, no hometown discount for me. It changed everything. Okay, so you go from that group of players that said hometown discount and stayed to a guy who was ticked off, and a lot of people think he was ticked off because Roland had made more money and they traded for Holliday, and they ultimately gave him the big contract. And Albert said, I'm not giving you a hometown discount. Everything changed. Cardinals have not gotten a hometown discount from a player since then. All right. And yes, they did get a good deal on Paul Goldschmidt, but it was a market level deal, traded for Arenado, and they got concessions, but most of those were from the Rockies, and Arenado is getting a market level deal. And Wainwright stayed and Molina stayed for less, but they were kind of entrenched here. It was a little bit different. You also had Wainwright and Molina, well, mostly Wainwright and Holliday, making calls to people to try to get them to come here. They tried to keep Jason Hayward here. Jason Hayward said, nope, team's too old. I'm not going to give the Cardinals a hometown discount. And obviously he didn't. They tried like heck, and Yachty was part of bringing Albert Pujols back. But a lot of the people that the Cardinals wanted to come here, the Cardinal players wanted to come here, didn't come here because there was no hometown discount. So the Cardinals are in a situation now where the desirability of players to come to St. Louis is in question as free agents. Gray wanted to come here. Contreras wanted to come here. So, and those guys signed pretty good deals, right? 75 over 3 for Gray. What is it? 87.5 million over 5 for Wilson Contreras. But my point is, you could lose that goodwill of guys desiring to come here if a guy like Nolan Arenado, who's a beloved figure among players, is mistreated.
That's completely fair. I think this is a good point by Bach Hogg, who says, flip side, Doug Armstrong and Jim Montgomery, who wouldn't want to come play for the Blues? And we have heard that Doug Armstrong is extremely harsh in that you when it comes down to it, you are a number connected to a cap number and connected to a points number, and that's part of the equation. That's just what you are when he has to come down to making decisions. And so there is that other side of things.
Well, and the point that I would make, and the question I would ask is, who is signed with the Blues for less than market value?
That's a very good
point.
point.
When you signed Thomas and Kyrou, that was for more than market value.
Yes.
You signed last year Buchnevich, probably for more than market value. Maybe Binnington, this 36 over 6, but he was one of the highest paid goalies in the league. when he got that contract. I'm trying to think of the guys.
It's a really good point. They really haven't got anybody on a cheap hometown contract.
Yeah.
It's like Tarasenko's extensions weren't.
Yeah. I mean, Petro may have stayed for less, but it would have been way less than market value if he would have gotten the no move. So you're right. I think people do want to play for Army and for Monty, and we'll see with Monty. I think he's a likable coach, but I don't think that we're going to get Blues players to come to the Blues for a lot less than market value. I think the Panthers are in an interesting situation. Number one, no state income tax. We talked about that last week. But I think the other thing with the Panthers is they can pay you in sunshine, right? You got Matthew Tkachuk going to practice in his golf cart. He's 2 blocks away from home.
You know what? I want to bring up another.
And by the way, he's making $9.2 million.
I want to bring up another case of that because this isn't material to this conversation, but I do want to point out that we're starting to see more of the things you're talking about. Desmond Bane was traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Orlando Magic. It was a haul of a trade. That's not that, and that's immaterial to what I'm talking about. The thing I want to bring up is that when asked about the trade, Desmond Bane brought up how there's sunshine and light inside of the Orlando facility. The facility is different. The one in Memphis didn't have one window. We called it the dungeon. This is a breath of fresh air. You can literally go outside and get a breath of fresh air. The people is what's really going to make this place special. And it was pointed out that the Grizzlies have a practice facility that is connected to the arena, and it's not close to where a lot of the players live in Memphis. And so this is on the piggyback of literally wasn't Steve Javie, who was the Kenny Albert, the clip we played from the Dan Le Batard show, where Kenny Albert talked about how the Panthers having their facility that all the players can just drive their golf carts to is a huge boon going forward. And again, both of the fact that we're talking about the Florida Panthers and the Orlando Magic, those two first words matter, Florida and Orlando compared to Memphis and what have you. But nonetheless, there are things that matter. If you had a very close, better facility with a lot of natural lighting in Memphis, Desmond Bane's quote right there is a little bit different.
Yeah, right. So it does make a difference. And that's one thing, obviously, the Cardinals need to overcome. They need to be a pristine organization because we don't have a great climate. It's not a difference-making climate in St. Louis. It's cold in the early part of the season and at the end of the season, and it's super hot in the middle of the season. Obviously, our city has taken some hits. So there are things that the Cardinals need to overcome to try to procure the talents of free agents and keep players around. And I just don't think that the perception, I'm not saying that a guy that's making $35 million is mistreated. I'm just saying the perception of the way he is treated is recognized by other players.
So we saw somebody throw into the chat. I've lost it right now. Gorman needs to start taking left field reps tomorrow, things like that. Outside of an injury, and that would obviously be bad. That's not what you want. But outside of an injury, there really isn't a solve for the logjam right now that the Cardinals have.
No.
Outside of an injury or trading players.
But I agree with that. I think both Gorman and Herrera would serve themselves well to get an outfielder's glove and start shagging in pregame with the guys and working with John Jay, Yanye, and the Federalist, who's one of our coaches, and trying to learn the outfield. I think that would enhance their value, do what Alec Burleson has done, do what Brendan Donovan has done, and try to become as versatile as you can possibly be. You know, I want to be versatile, but I'm not going to be today.
And before we jump into that, Randy, I just want to tell everybody one final time on the YouTube, we're going to jump over to our Facebook only stream. I put it up there in the corner.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube only stream. Excuse me. Facebook viewers, the show will continue exclusively on the STL Sports Central YouTube stream. You can click on the YouTube link right now in the chat. If you look on your Facebook chat as you watch the show, you'll see a link right now coming up from STL Sports Central. Click on the YouTube link and watch the final hour of the show as we take you to about 11:30 on the STL Sports Central. Thank you so much for joining us on Facebook today.
Yeah, and we'll see you. We're seeing you now on YouTube. You make your way over to YouTube for the Randy Karraker Show. We're with you until about 11:30. And we also want you to know about DraftKings, where the crown is yours. DraftKings Pick 6. All you need to do is download the app, the DraftKings Pick 6 app, and use that promo code right there, STL Sports. And when you do, when you play $5, you'll get $50 in bonus picks. That's 10 extra picks to keep the action going. It's easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to stay connected to the game. Now, here's one of the things that I'm doing today, and I want you to join me because as deep as we are into the season, we kind of have an idea of who can do what. Well, I've teamed up with DraftKings to play Pick Six, and here's what I'm doing today. All right. I have Garrett Crochet going against Seattle, and Seattle does strike out a lot. I'm going to go with him to get more than 7.5 strikeouts. Okay.
I like that.
And then I'm going to take what I deem to be free money. So I've got Crochet at 7.5. Sonny Gray is only at 5.5 strikeouts.
Take it.
I'm going to go with Sonny Gray to get more than 5.5 strikeouts against the White Sox. So it's Crochet more than 7.5 against the Mariners. It's Gray more than 5.5 against the White Sox. And bing, bang, boom, I have my bet set up at DraftKings Pick Six. Download that app today. Use the code STL Sports when you sign up, only on DraftKings Pick Six, where the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick Six credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, an interesting story at STL Today, Eli Hoff writing that Mizzou spent more than $31 million on name, image, and likeness payments for players last season, this past school year. 2/3 of that spending was on football. 1/4 of it was on basketball. So that's about $20 million, a little more than $20 million was the payroll of the football team. Obviously, you got to make money to spend money, and that's what they're doing at the University of Missouri. I think that'll probably go up over the course of this next season. The rest of the money, by the way, after the 1/4 of it on men's basketball and 2/3 on football, spread across baseball, women's basketball, and lower profile programs. The athletic program as a whole, quote, distributed an influx of cash to athletes before the landmark House versus NCAA settlement takes effect soon and imposes a de facto salary cap in the past month. I wonder what that cap will be, and I wonder if there is really going to be a salary cap for Mizzou athletes, because as we've heard, and I really wish I knew the rule about this, but from my understanding and the logic here is that players can still use their own name, image, and likeness and sell that outside of the confines of the Missouri Athletic Department and get paid from a company that isn't necessarily associated with the Mizzou Athletic Department. And my example here is if we wanted to pay Kevin Coleman, St. Louis guy, $100,000 a year to show up on STL Sports Central. I don't know if we have $100,000 to pay him, but if we wanted to, I believe, Matthew, that we still could.
Yes. So the deal is that $18 million will be allowed to pay directly from the school. That is going to be per school. They get $18 million to distribute directly from the school. External NIL deals can still be negotiated, but they will be subjected to quote unquote increased scrutiny, which is how it was referred to in Eli Hoff's breakdown here. And really it was fascinating because of the $31.7 million spent. So some of these numbers are coming down in one way, shape, or form, or they're going to have to be redistributed. They're going to have to find a way to get 13.7 million of this approved a different way, because only 18 million is coming from the school. So 31.7 million was spent over 2025. 10.3 of that was spent in June of 2025. This month, to front load deals to get around the House versus NCAA settlement. Absolutely genius, but it does show that they are getting ahead of things changing, and things changing probably means things are going to go down. To that point, there was an article yesterday, and Todd Golden was quoted in it, the head coach of Florida's basketball team. He was quoted as saying, as soon as the next cycle starts, guys are going to be making 10 to 20% of what they have been making these last 2 years. Not 10 to 20% less, 10 to 20% of what they have been making the last 2 years. I think that's a little bit probably too much of a worry. And the actual quote should probably read, as soon as the next cycle starts, guys are going to be getting paid directly from the school 10 to 20% of what they were last year.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what the quote should read. Is like $31 million is not just going to evaporate for Missouri into $18 million. That $13.7 million is still going to be fought for, and I bet won in a lot of cases by Mizzou. But the fact of the matter is, things are changing when the House versus NCAA settlement takes effect.
Yeah, and I think it'll change maybe for the better for women's sports, because now lawsuits filed on behalf of women, I think 7 different lawsuits have been filed against the ruling of the House settlement by people that are talking about Title IX. Title IX not mentioned at all in the House settlement, and Title IX obviously is a federal law that does require that females get the same benefits as males in college sports, and that's reasonable. So I think there is an issue there that has to be decided. But ultimately, and I think this is the big thing. Laird Veatch was here in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago and told a group of people that every single starting football player in the SEC in 2025 is going to make at least 6 figures. That's not going backwards, Matthew. Players are not going to start taking 20% of what they were making or 30%. So Bo Pribula replaces Brady Cook. Bo Pribula is not going to take 20% of what Brady Cook made at the University of Missouri. Maybe a better example would be the new, what's the name of the new tackle from Florida State that we got? Transfer. You have Armand Membo, who was probably doing pretty well because he, heading into last year, was doing,
Johnny Williams the fourth,
I think,
or so. Keegan Trost.
Keegan. So is he going to, because he knows what the other guy was making. Is that player going to willingly take only 20% of what his predecessor was making? I just don't see that happening. And I don't see schools, coaches, Eli Drinkwitz saying, yeah, you've got to take 20% of what your predecessor made. I just don't see that happening, especially because Eli has so many connections to people that will provide the private NIL deals. I don't think things are going to change that much.
And to your point, the money's going to come from different ways. It's still going to be there. And why I'm confident in saying that is because they went from spending paying out $12 million in NIL in 2024 to apparently $31 million, almost $32 million in 2025, the first half of 2025. So they're 3Xing or even 4Xing what they did in 2024, which tells me that they know how to pivot and they know how to fundraise and they know how to pivot within their fundraising. Because if you can 4X your fundraising in 1 year, it tells me that the right people, or at least effective people, are at the helm for Mizzou right now, pulling the strings and getting the money here, which means they will take their $18 million salary cap and they will find $20 million on top of that in other deals. Those will be heavily scrutinized. But again, with the way this team apparently hustled the last year, I'm confident they're still going to be able to find, if not 32 million, probably more over the next few years around the 18 million that everyone gets for the salary cap.
I just wonder, because with the NFL or any other professional sport, not that this isn't professional, but the preponderance of the money that athletes are making comes from TV money. This money is coming primarily from individuals. I wonder how many schools and how many boosters will have the appetite to contribute to player salaries year after year after year. I can't imagine that there's a tremendous amount of return on investment when you have an offensive lineman at the University of Missouri, right? Are people coming to your business because Caden Green is appearing on your billboard? I don't know if that's the case.
This is the final few graphs from Eli's incredible story. And Eli is his story hit yesterday, but he's taking some time right now. And so we're hopefully going to get Eli on the show next week to talk about the story. And obviously by next week, the landscape of what college sports are post-house settlement and how all these numbers are different, that might be a little bit more set in stone when we talk in 4 or 5 days, because that's how things are changing. But the last few graphs from the story I want to read. because they were talking about what, essentially what happens, because every true Tiger will still exist, but there is the $20.5 million cap. 2.5 of that is new athletic scholarships, hence the $18 million. So this is Laird Veatch. It's a lot of what we're talking about internally with Brad Larondo, with ETT, but also with Learfield. How do we all come together to help facilitate those deals at a high level? One of the kind of operational advantages that we'll continue to have is that Brad and our Every True Tiger program, they have such good relationships directly with student athletes. They'll be able to facilitate those revenue share contracts, and at the same time, they can be frontline in terms of fulfilling all those things with student athletes, coordinating with them. Local and regional businesses will be vital too if they can sign Missouri athletes to the kind of third-party deals that will be approved by NIL Go, which is the National Clearinghouse. Final quote from Veatch here: "We're going to need our businesses, our sponsors, to really embrace that as a part of the new era. It's going to be on us as athletic departments and Learfield as our partner to continue to integrate those types of opportunities in meaningful ways for sponsors. I see that as the next area of innovation and where we can really help to give our sports and our programs another competitive leg up."
Well, good luck. The economy isn't great, is it? I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are struggling. I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of money. Maybe that's what has to happen. Maybe the 1% needs to really support college athletics.
Yeah, I kind of was making jokes about that yesterday with oil people from other countries in pro sports. But hey, listen, private equity and those kind of things are starting to enter into college sports, and if you're going to need real cash. And to your point, it's unrealistic to expect that cash to always be tied to actual results of the advertising deals. That's unrealistic. Mason Windu, how will the money affect the players' drive and motivation once they go to the NFL, especially for those who might be low draft picks but already made big money? I will simply counter that with that question is a better situation to have, in my opinion, than the situation we've been dealing with for the last 30 to 40 years, which is low round draft picks now have to sacrifice mental and physical health to try to make it to the NFL, to try to break through and make a few million, so that even though their bodies are broken down by 55, it's okay that they're retired by that point because of what they had to do to make it to the NFL. You're right. It's not 100% the correct situation right now, but I think this is better than what it used to be.
Lefty, Cole Bassett's left foot. We'll call you Lefty if you want to be Lefty. Did Shedeur Sanders at Colorado make more cabbage at Colorado, or now with the Browns? Made more at Colorado, $6.5 million, way more. The reason that the former Georgia quarterback who went to Miami, had the Lamborghini at Georgia.
He got cheated on the Cavender twin right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of this one? Georgia QB transfers.
But anyways,
such a Georgia
he committed to the NFL draft.
Carson Beck,
yeah. Realized he was going to go in the fourth or fifth round, got offered more money than he would have made in the NFL by the University of Miami. So he decided to transfer rather than go to the NFL. So that point is one to be made. One other is that last year there were 16 college quarterbacks that made more money than Brock Purdy did playing in the NFL. So yes, players are going to stay in college, at least theoretically, because if they can still make more on their individual NIL deals, and they all have agents, they can make more than they would if they played in the National Football League.
Also, maybe now if a guy's saying, hey, listen, I can make 60, 80, 100 grand in school instead of trying to risk it to go make a practice squad salary of like 300 grand. I'm going to stay in school. I'm going to make some money playing football, but now I'm actually going to graduate with my degree because I don't have to worry about pushing myself to be an NFL player. Because there are stories. The one that's jumping out to me right now, I'm blanking on the name. There was a wide receiver from Rutgers, and he put his name in, and they said, you're going to go in the 7th round. And he goes, that's fine. I have to get a job now. He goes, I have a family to take care of. My parents need help with their bills at home. I cannot just be sitting at Rutgers playing another season of football without making any money. And he didn't make it to the NFL. And it's a really sad story because I'm not sure what happened to him, but like there were players who left college early to try to make money because they were not going to make any money playing college sports. And because of the college sports schedule, they could not do something to make money. I know Henry Josie had a crazy situation in Mizzou because he had a daughter very young. And he was pushing himself despite a crazy injury and things like that. It's good that those situations aren't going to be as prevalent.
I want to get to this chat from Jakahi, who says they're going to have to split up D1 to make it fair. We already saw with March Madness, smaller schools are negatively affected because players and coaches just leave for money. And what's going to happen is the St. Louis-based Missouri Valley Conference, the A10, they're going to become developmental leagues for the Power Four. And there is a limited amount of finances available for those schools, especially the basketball-only schools. So, yeah, if Josh Schertz gets a really good player at SLU, coaches him up for a year, and then all of a sudden he'll be poached by the Power Four. So you're exactly right. There's two choices here. You can just accept that reality and have the smaller conferences and the smaller schools here in St. Louis, Lindenwood. You can have those teams only have young players that they're developing for Power Four, or you can, as you suggest, split up Power Four and the other ones. And you almost have to have two separate championships, right? If you're going to do it that way. But that might be the only way to make this fair and reasonable, because I think we will be in a situation where financially a school like St. Louis University, a school like SIU Edwardsville, schools like Carbondale and Murray State, they just won't be able to compete.
And I think on the grand scheme, you're right. But isn't there also an area where, the rising tide raises all boats, essentially? Now, Mizzou fans, cover your ears on this one. I know we've been talking a lot of Mizzou. This is a Mizzou segment, essentially. But I'm going to ask you to cover your ears for a second, because I'm going to talk about something that's painful. You have to open your ears. I have to talk to you about it. Sorry. I'm a Mizzou fan, too. I have to talk. If you saw what Drake did this past year, took a bunch of D2 guys and won some games in the tournament, isn't there an idea of just, if you're a low major, your coaching up is going to have to be not only the freshmen you bring in that are eventually going to leave after their sophomore year, but you're going to have to bring in the junior who's played 2 years at D2, and he's going to have to be kind of the guy who leads you the next way.
But you're going to also have to count on your own evaluation, right?
Yes.
Because that D2 guy is also being evaluated by the Power Four. And these players are going where the money is ultimately. Yeah. So I am of the belief that mid-major is going to be just that, mid-major. We saw it with how many SEC teams made it to the NCAA tournament? Was it 14? I think 14 and 16?
13 or 14.
I can't imagine that it's going to go any differently than that. I think that we do have two distinctly different genres of college sports. We've got the Power Four, and then we've got everybody else. And I think we can split it up even into three, because you'll have the Power Four, and then you'll have the Valleys of the world that play football, and then you'll have the basketball only schools like SLU. And then I don't know where you fit like Lindenwood and SEMO, the Ohio Valley Conference. I don't know where you fit that in. Small football schools, I don't know how they fit in.
Smarter people than me are going to have to figure this all out, because it's confusing. And my final point here, just a final little bit of nice job, by the way, to the Post-Dispatch and Eli Hoff. They got all this information because they freedom of information. They did an information request on public documents, and because of the way, I'm assuming this is how it works, because of the way that Mizzou uses Every True Tiger, which is like a marketing agency connected to Mizzou, because they use them as a way to push all this money out. The invoices go from Mizzou to this company, and therefore you could do an information request and get all the invoices, and that's how they put together all this information. So hat tip to the reporting by Eli Hoff and everyone over at the Post-Dispatch, because this is not going to come out for other programs. You're not going to see very many pre-house settlement looks into it. I wonder if we'll see more information like this become publicly available, because now there'll be a bunch of third-party deals and we'll get the money. But this is a fascinating look into the insides of NIL right before everything changes. This is a story I think we're going to be referring back to for just like context in the rest of college sports for the next like 5 to 10 years. So incredible job by Eli and everyone there.
Journalism is good.
Yes, very good. Very good. Very good story. Thing. Just like when the Braves their books went public. It was like
media. Yep.
We finally have one thing, we at least have one data point we can now move off of, which is better than none.
Yeah. Hey, I want you to know about Fenton Bar and Grill. You know, my guy over at Fenton Bar and Grill, the 2024 Maitre D of the Year, Chuck Nash, such a good guy. And my friends at the Fenton Bar and Grill are just so philanthropic. I'm on the board of Folds of Honor. I think I've told you that before. And we've got our golf tournament coming up on Monday over at Whitmore and at Persimmon Woods. We're using 3 different courses. And the Fenton Bar and Grill has been kind enough to donate their trashed wings to part of our lunch at the Fenton Bar and Grill or at the golf tournament on Monday over. They're going to be over at Persimmon Woods. I guarantee you, everybody that has those trashed wings at the golf tournament on Monday is going to stop by the Fenton Bar and Grill later, because once you have the trashed wings from Fenton Bar and Grill, you can't stop. You can't. You just have to have more and more and more. And they're so incredibly, tantalizingly delicious. You are going to just adore the idea of stopping by the Fenton Bar and Grill for those trashed wings. There you see the ranch. I love to dip into the ranch. I know that a lot of people like their signature golden sauce, which is absolutely spectacular. And at the Fenton Bar and Grill, it's more than just the trashed wings. They have delicious wraps. The buffalo chicken wrap, it's fantastic. I'm a fan of the chicken Caesar wrap. The burgers there are great. Salads, if you're into that health thing, are really good. And the service over at the Fenton Bar and Grill is as good as it gets. Stop by and say hi to Megan and Jamie and Candy and the whole gang over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. They're on Rudder Road, just 2 minutes away from the soccer park in Fenton. They have a fantastic outdoor patio that you'll absolutely love. It's going to be even cool when the weather is warm. They've got the ceiling fans going, and it's nice and cool, and it's a great place to go. I'm a regular there, and I hope to see you over there at one of the great places in St. Louis. It's the Dive with a Vibe. It's the Fenton Bar and Grill. When you go, tell them Randy sent you.
Yeah, vibe with a dive is a very different thing.
Dive with vibe. Vibe with a dive is very different. So yeah, stop by. By the way, all the games are on. They have beer specials all the time. It's cool. It's the Fenton Bar and Grill. All right. So Matthew, last night, another Matthew Tkachuk wound up getting another Stanley Cup championship. He is now a 2-time Stanley Cup champ. He is also a member of the Four Nations silver medal winning team at the Four Nations tournament. He's going to be on the Olympic team for the United States in 2026. And he's closing in on that spot of being one of the most decorated and accomplished athletes ever to come out of St. Louis. How close do you think he is? And by the way, he's got a long way to go. We want we want your chats here just to come up with names so we can brainstorm about this. And we've got a lot. We've got Steve Atwater, who won a couple of Super Bowls, a Hall of Famer with the Denver Broncos. We've got Kristen Fokel, 4-time volleyball All-American at Stanford, and a 3-time champion there, a basketball All-American too, and she played in the WNBA. JJK, Jackie Joyner Kersey, maybe the best athlete ever to come out of St. Louis. 3 Olympic gold medals, a silver and 2 bronzes in different sports. JoJo White, kind of for the uninitiated, kind of an underrated NBA guy. 2-time NBA champion, 74 and 76. The NBA Finals MVP in 76 for the Celtics against the Suns, and a 7-time NBA All-Star, 71 through 77. And then it's going to be hard for Matthew or anybody else to beat Yogi Berra. In terms of accomplishment, in terms of decoration, Yogi Berra, 14 World Series that he played in, 10 World Championships, a Hall of Famer, an 18-time All-Star, and a 3-time MVP. I think Yogi probably, in terms of what St. Louis has produced, is going to be number 1 for the rest of our lives. But if we're battling for second place, how close is Matthew to getting into second place?
Yeah, I mean, he's still battling, because right now, so we're going to say just most decorated. It's going to be Yogi just because of the sheer amount, and then JJK because being a multi-sport, as track and field, being a multi-event medalist in the Olympics is wild, insane, crazy, impressive. But we did get a very, very good entering into the discussion here. Another female, another great, incredible woman athlete, Becky Sauerbrunn.
Oh, there you go.
Who, I mean, she won 2 FIFA Women's World Cups in 15 and 19. She won 4 CONCACAF Women's Championships. She was, not 2, 2 World Cups. Yes. She also won a gold medal in the Summer Olympics and a bronze medal as well. She's won the NWSL, which is the Women's MLS Championship. She's won that 2 times in back-to-back years. So, I mean, that's That's a lot of
That
that's
is
a lot of titles for Becky Sauerbrunn too.
I think in terms of
That's insane.
recognition and decoration.
She's up there.
Yeah, well, she's definitely right now beyond Matthew, isn't
She
she?
is. Yeah. I think, I mean, just with those numbers, 2 World Cups, a gold medal in the Olympics, and back-to-back championships in her respective sport, she is right past, I think, JoJo White, and right behind Yogi and JJK. Yeah, I think, and right, like I said, right past Matthew as well.
Okay, what about Cameron Saunders?
That is a big one. The Saunders family,
Yeah,
pretty good.
Colin has a Super Bowl championship or 2.
Yeah. He's
right?
on the Saints now, so I think he's only.
Yeah.
I think he was only on the
Got
first
one.
Chiefs one.
And then Cameron is the dancer for Taylor Swift,
That's
and
pretty
dancing
big.
is a sport.
Damn right.
I don't know if you do get awarded for that. You win championships,
Oh,
right?
wait a second, Randy. I think we might have really
we
mistakenly missed.
Did we overlook somebody?
We did overlook somebody. A man who won a European tour and won 37 national finals, including 10 majors. Who you are, I am Pete Weber.
Oh yeah, that's
We
a great
forgot
call.
about Pete Weber.
Pete Weber and Hale Irwin.
And Hale Irwin. Leon Spinks from Let's Turn 2. We also we can't forget, if dancers are athletes, drivers are athletes too. We got the Wallaces. So I mean, God, we churn them out here. But I really feel like just the full, how many wins? Because Kenny's the bigger media star,
Rusty's
and we
got more
love him.
wins,
But
yeah.
Rusty's got
Rusty was
the
good.
wins. Rusty over the years won in NASCAR. I'm trying to find how many career wins he had in NASCAR, and I'm really failing to do that right now.
Okay, well let's try to figure out. Okay,
55 wins.
2 Stanley Cup. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
2 Stanley Cup championships in 2024 and 2025 equals how many baseball championships in the late 40s and 50s?
I thank you so much for bringing up this part of the question, because that was something I wanted to talk about. Yes, I think if you win 3 modern day titles, it's on the same level as Yogi Berra's 10 with the Yankees. That might seem unfair to some people, but I think it's fair to say that the Stanley Cups that Matthew Tkachuk is winning individually are about 3 times as hard as it was to win a championship with the Yankees in the 60s.
Okay,
I think it's fair.
And they were done by basically 62.
Okay, so 50s.
Most of what they did was in the 50s. So let's pick out a random year. 1955, Yogi Berra was the MVP, playing for the Yankees that year, and there were 16 teams playing, and obviously now there are 30 playing in Major League Baseball. So in theory, right, it should be twice as hard to win now mathematically with 30 as opposed to 16.
Yeah, and then you had to be the best team in the league to play in the World Series for a lot of those years, because that was before the championship series, wasn't it? That was just that was just pennant winner against pennant winner, right?
Exactly.
So the fact that they always had to be the best team in the league, maybe that breaks the numbers a little bit away from my 3 back to year 2. I think that's more fair. By the way, NASCAR Cup Series modern era from 1972 to present.
Mm-hmm.
Rusty Wallace sits at 2, 4, 6, 8, 11th all time, behind Jeff Gordon, Darrell Waltrip, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Cale Yarborough, Kyle Busch, Richard Petty, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, Bobby Allison, and Rusty Wallace. You know it's a good list because I don't know NASCAR very well, and I've heard of every one of those drivers except for one.
Which one?
I don't know who Bobby Allison is.
Oh,
I know he's a legend. Yeah,
he was when I was a kid.
Old school legend, but
he was racing at the same time as Richard Petty.
The only
Cale Yarborough.
The only old school, I had heard of Cale Yarborough. The only old school name I really remember is Dick Trickle.
Oh, Bobby Allison's.
You'll know
Dick
why.
Trickle.
You'll know why I remember the
Great.
name.
Bobby. Okay,
Such a child.
this will surprise you.
Okay,
Bobby Allison's brother, Davey, also an auto racer.
Okay, interesting. Wait a
Things
second.
that he didn't know, I knew.
Are you screwing with me right now? Is this some kind
No,
of joke being
so
played
check
on?
it out. Bobby
Okay.
and Davey Allison. I also know that you had Al Unser and Al Unser had a brother that I think
It seems like it's naturally a good family. It's a family sport because of like the fact of like you have to be full bore into it because you're fixing the cars. It's a lot of travel. It seems like it kind of builds itself to be a very naturally like a family sport in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
But yes, I mean Pete Weber, Rusty Wallace, they got to be up there because
they really do.
relative to their sport. I mean, we're talking about guys who finished, top 5, top 10 all time in wins in their respective sport. That's a good one.
Thank you.
I guess Davey was his son, so that's fair. But I'm saying family sport, though. A lot of sports are. The NBA is being taken over by second generation guys for the exact same reasons, which is just you're always around the game. They're bringing their sons into the sport. They're sitting in the locker rooms. It's the same thing with racing. It's just, I think, more exacerbated in why you see so many families in that sport.
Quality information from AI. The Allison family is a prominent name in American auto racing, particularly within NASCAR, often referred to as the Alabama Gang. The family includes brothers Bobby and Donnie Allison. So I was thinking Davey was Bobby's
Donnie. Okay,
brother. So it's
sense.
Bobby and Donnie Allison were brothers, and then Bobby's sons, Davey and Clifford Allison, all of whom achieved significant success in the sport. So now you know a little bit more about auto racing than you probably wanted to know today on the Randy Karraker Show. This usually doesn't happen.
Matthew has so much more work to do. It's so unfair. He's probably going to have a good shot at a gold medal in the Olympics. If not, he's going to be staring down 2 Stanley Cups, 2 silver medals, and a very long amount of track for him to cover all these other greats in St. Louis. We have really been blessed with a lot of incredible athletes come out of St. Louis. That's wild when we get down to the list.
Yeah, and I am of the opinion, and I think you are too, the way that our conversation has gone. I believe that 3 consecutive finals and 2 championships in this time constitutes a dynasty. I think that's what the Florida Panthers have right now.
And because JoJo's part of the Boston Celtics.
That's a dynasty.
And that's a dynasty. Yogi obviously part of a dynasty in the Yankees. And so you have to give them credit for that one. And you could argue Becky Sauerbrunn also part of a dynasty when you talk about the women's national team in soccer.
Yeah. So congratulations to Matthew Tkachuk and the entire Tkachuk family.
Amen.
Okay. I had the distinct ability, and it wasn't my fault, but I had the ability to rattle the cage of one Matthew Rocchio this morning. And I'm going to tell you how and why I was able to rattle Matthew Rocchio's cage in a moment. But I want you to know about hot shots before we get to that, before Matthew's cage is rattled again. Sports Hub STL post-game shows are brought to you in part by Hot Shots. And they've got 13 area locations. And we want you to stop by, check them out, and celebrate their 35th anniversary. If you're looking for a great place to watch the Cardinals either tonight or tomorrow, day game, stop by Hot Shots. They've been around for 35 years, and it's their home for all of the games all the time since 1990. Find your spot at hotshotsnet.com. I'm a Hot Shots devotee. You like it?
Yeah, you're going to make me get mad here at the end of the show, aren't you?
I am.
Dang it.
Okay, so the NFL, 2 people named Aaron Schatz and Seth Walder put together what they think are the best group of NFL players in this quarter century. I don't think we'll get much argument that the 3 quarterbacks are Brady, Manning, and Mahomes. We can go with that, right?
Yep.
Okay, but
Brady, Manning, Mahomes.
Yeah.
Brady. Yes.
So that's good, right? Running backs, though, this is where it gets interesting. Priest Holmes, number 1. Christian McCaffrey,
I'm going to
number
stop
2.
you right there.
Derrick Henry, number 3. LaDainian Tomlinson on the practice squad. No Adrian Peterson.
I'm sorry. So Priest Holmes is number 1. Christian McCaffrey's the backup, and Derrick Henry's the practice squad player.
Yes, sir.
They seem to be missing who, in my opinion, is unequivocally the best running back of this century. And that's, you can argue it's Adrian Peterson. I would argue it's LaDainian Tomlinson.
He's on the practice squad.
That's insane. Listen, I love Christian McCaffrey, but there are very few examples as good of what have you done for me lately as somebody trying to look me in the face and tell me that Christian McCaffrey is a more dominant football player than LaDainian Tomlinson was. I refuse to believe it. That's insane. What LaDainian Tomlinson's doing
better than Priest Holmes.
Yes,
I love
that too. That too. The fact that you take the 2010s alone and you pull Priest Holmes out of there instead of LaDainian Tomlinson is bananas to me, mainly because LaDainian Tomlinson has the more impressive single season. He broke the record that Priest Holmes broke of Marshall's. In fact, I love this too. Marshall breaks it. Priest Holmes breaks it a couple years later. Sean Alexander breaks it. And then a year later, LaDainian Tomlinson breaks it. And so this is the total touchdowns record in the season. He broke the record that Priest Holmes broke, won an MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, It's LT over Priest Holmes 100% of the time. I have no idea how Priest Holmes ended up as the number one running back of the 21st century. To your point, Adrian Peterson is number 2, if not LaDainian Tomlinson.
Here's a fun fact for you. So Adrian Peterson played his entire career in this quarter of a century. He's 5th all time in rushing. LaDainian Tomlinson played his entire career
Drafted in 01.
in this quarter century. He's 7th all time in rushing.
That seems like a good number 1, 2 there.
The only playing that Priest Holmes got, because when he was at Baltimore, he really wasn't a player. They still had Jamal Lewis. But he played the preponderance of his good years in this century. He's 48th.
That's
in all-time rushing.
And again, to the point of Peterson, 100% the best runner there. But if you look at 21st century total yardage, I have to imagine that LT jumps from 7th to around 3rd or 4th. If you just look at total yards from scrimmage for the 21st century, LT is going to jump up because he, on the backs of Marshall Faulk, took pass catching as a running back to a completely new level.
Yeah.
Roger Craig, Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson. I think you can draw pretty direct lines from those 3 players in changing how running backs were used in offenses as pass catchers.
Yeah.
100%.
So, career yards from scrimmage. Jerry Rice, obviously number 1. Marshall is number 5. And most of Marshall's good play came in the last century. LaDainian Tomlinson, number 6 all time, but behind, and here's another one, by the way.
Yes. Oh my God, this is a great point.
Frank Gore.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's nowhere on the list either of running backs. So, and his entire career was played in this quarter century. Okay. So I'm going to piss him off a little bit more. Go ahead.
Because if you are you still looking at that total yards from scrimmage list?
I got it right here.
Look who number 9 on the list is. And now and then go ahead into your next part of the thing that's going to make me mad.
So the next group that ESPN.com has for their all quarter century team in the NFL: wide receivers,
A lot of good ones.
Randy Moss,
Okay.
Calvin Johnson,
Okay.
Julio Jones,
Okay.
Terrell Owens, who, by the way, started in 96, 97, 98, 99, was in a different decade. Marvin Harrison, the same, 96, 97, 98, 99, different decade. And then Justin Jefferson. So, again, that group is Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, and Justin Jefferson, with their practice squad guys as Antonio Brown and Andre Johnson.
Okay. Now go back to that total yards from scrimmage. This is not receiving yards. This is total yards from scrimmage. In NFL history, there are 2 wide receivers in the top 10. One of them played only the last 4 years of his career in this century. Jerry Rice, he's number 1. He shouldn't be on this list. But there is one other wide receiver in the top 10. And in fact, there is only one other wide receiver. There are only 2 wide receivers in the top 15. 14th is Terrell Owens. Mm-hmm. But a guy who played his entire career in this century is sitting at number 9, a wide receiver, and that is a man by the name of Larry Fitzgerald. And he is not on this list anywhere.
Pretty remarkable.
What is the metric we're using? If you're going to give me Terrell Owens, if you're going to give me Antonio Brown, who had crazy numbers in a small time frame, you better give me the second most the second greatest longevity and efficiency wide receiver of all time in Larry Fitzgerald. Unbelievable he's not on the list. That's insane. And then let's get to the local fact, because and
let me make one other point for you. So you brought up Jerry Rice, who only played through 2004, right? Mm-hmm. After 2003, Priest Holmes had 196 attempts in 04, 119 in 05, and 46 in 07. He had 100 in terms of yardage after Jerry Rice retired. He had, let me get 2 yards here. He actually was very good. 892 yards in 04, which was the last year that Jerry Rice played. 451 in 05, 137 in 07. So basically, if you want to put Jerry Rice on this team, you can.
Yeah, arguably you could.
Unbelievable. No receiver had more catchers or more yards from 2000 through 2009 than Torry Holt of your St. Louis Rams. He became the first player ever to have 6 consecutive 1,300-yard seasons. And he did that with Isaac Bruce on the other side of him, catching a bunch of passes for most of that decade. How you can't even have Torry Holt on the practice squad is just incredible to me. And I would go so far as to say stupid, that this list just became stupid when you didn't include Larry Fitzgerald or Torry Holt.
And I'm reading, I'm looking at some of the rationale here.
Mhm.
And
DVOA?
Yeah, Randy. In the advanced DYAR metrics for total values, this is talking about Priest Holmes. These seasons of his rank 15th, 2nd, and 3rd among all running backs since 1978. So they are using analytics, and I feel like I've been duped. I've been tricked. I've been bamboozled. One of the main point here in putting Derrick Henry above Peterson and Tomlinson is, you got to be kidding me. Derrick Henry has a 4.9 yards per carry, ahead of the career numbers of 4.6 for Adrian Peterson and 4.3 for LaDainian Tomlinson. And my thing is just the way that the NFL goes, to be comparing yards per carry of a career number versus a guy whose career has not yet ended, and then comparing him to Peterson and Tomlinson when LT got hit by the bug that running backs were getting hit by in the mid 2000s, where yes, he went to the Jets and had like a season with 3.9 yards per carry, but you're going to hold that against LaDainian Tomlinson. That's an irresponsible usage of numbers, in my opinion. Also,
agree.
One more thing, because we can't do every position, but we skipped one in between running back and wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They picked Kyle Juszczyk as the best fullback of this century. And my thing is about that is, yes, he has been used in a completely different way than most fullbacks are, but then that's Lorenzo Neal's spot, and you need to give it back to him before he finds you.
And let me give you one more, because they list their left tackles as Joe Thomas and Trent Williams. I have no problems with that. They say their practice squad is Walter Jones, Jordan Mailata, and then he says on Twitter, Aaron Schatz, SCHATZ, says on Twitter that all among those also discussed at left tackle were Jason Peters and Jonathan Ogden.
You have an issue. Well, I guess it's, if your Ogden was 98 and Pace was 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, yeah, you're only getting taken one more year of Ogden in the decade than Pace, and you're just not even talking about Orlando, and you're just talking about Ogden. No, that's ridiculous. Here's my thing. I love and respect all the left tackles from that day.
Mm-hmm.
Am I being biased that, yes, Ogden, but I feel like it was pretty unequivocal that Pace was considered a better player than Walter Jones across their careers. Yeah. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
At the very least equal. Yeah. If you're going to have the conversation, you have to include Orlando Pace in the conversation. And anybody who has watched 10 football games in their life knows that, with all due respect to Jordan Mailata, Orlando Pace is 10 times the player Jordan Mailata is.
Yeah, that's another one. And they put Mailata, I guess they're trying to, I think they might have just put him on there as like acknowledging that because of the international player pathway, because that's the only position where they listed 2 practice squad players. So I feel like they kind of threw Mailata in there as like, he's the best player to ever come through this international player pathway, which we obviously knew that one as well. God, it's not well done. Alan Faneca and Steve Hutchinson are the guards.
It's almost like these people started paying attention to football after 2010.
Kelsey was the center. To your point on that one, I guess Kelsey's 100%. Like, is Kelsey 100% better than Alex Mack? Like, is that not even a discussion?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. By the way, they're linebackers.
I'm gonna get mad at every single thing on this.
Ray
list.
Lewis, Bobby Wagner, Urlacher, Lavonte David, Luke Kuechly. Practice squad, Derek Brooks. Pretty good, but again, to not have, and this is just a misinformed discussion, I guess, that they had. Because to me, if you're going to have the discussion about linebackers, and Patrick Willis, a Hall of Famer, there, but you have to also include London Fletcher in that group.
Yes, London Fletcher should be in that group. Absolutely, 100%. I'm looking at pass rushers here. Ware, Allen, Garrett, Peppers with TJ Watt and Michael Strahan as the backups. I'm not not thinking of anything that's like jumping out that's ridiculous. Aaron Donald, Calais Campbell, Chris Jones. Practice squads are Kevin Williams and Cameron Hayward. I'm you know what? I'm just happy that they even mentioned Kevin Williams, because I don't think anyone talks about how incredible Kevin Williams was. Vince Wilfork's the nose tackle. JJ Watt. Okay, I was wondering where JJ Watt was going to be here. They have him under versatile defensive lineman. I'll take that one. Yeah, I'm trying to think, is there a defensive lineman that I'm really ticked that they left off here? The fact that Aaron Donald's number 1 is extremely deserved. I could argue that Kevin Williams should be on this list instead of Calais Campbell, Ray Lewis, Bobby Wagner, Brian Urlacher, Levante. You know what? Okay, they're saving me a little bit here. Never mind, they lost it.
There you go.
Because I was going to be like, hey, they put Levante David on the list, but they put him on over Derek Brooks, and I think that's a little bit of a mistake. Derek Brooks has the 2 or 3 years of his career in the 90s, but if you're going to pick a Buccaneers weak side linebacker to put on this list, you're putting Derek Brooks on the list. And I love Levante David, but I love Levante David because I love Derek Brooks. And so put Brooks on the list. Come on.
Brian Ellison, sounds like they're suffering from recency bias. I would say so. I like C too. C says 10 out of 10 on the rage bait list. Why isn't it hold in the Hall of Fame? Because of a guy named, and remember this name, Dallas Morning News, Rick Gosselin is his name. Says there are enough Greatest Show on Turf guys in the Hall of Fame already.
That is such imagine if somebody said that about the Steel Curtain.
Yeah.
There's enough Steel Curtain guys on there. We don't need another one.
Yeah. And we weren't saying, by the way, that Priest Holmes wasn't good. And we got a couple of Priest Holmes. Yeah, Priest Holmes was really good. But I think if you had a draft of players that performed in this century, I'm not so sure that Priest Holmes is in the top 5, actually, of running backs. If you take guys that played all the years they played in the century, don't include the years that they didn't play in this century. I mean,
Marshall is at worst at the exact same level just on 21st century seasons as Priest Holmes.
Yeah. But he is. But let's go with Peterson, LaDainian Tomlinson. So, okay, let's do this. Let's play this game. Is Priest Holmes even the best Chiefs running back of this century, or is Larry Johnson better?
I'll take Holmes over Larry Johnson. But honestly,
Larry Johnson almost had a 2,000-yard season.
He did. But as soon as he had 420 carries, he fell apart immediately the next season.
Yeah, but he did have the 420 carry
season. Yes, he did. You're right about that. I would take Priest Holmes over Larry Johnson. Yes.
Okay.
But just slightly, but yes.
Okay. So what I'm trying to do is knock Priest Holmes out of my top 5 of the decade.
Or of the last 25 years.
Marshawn.
Marshawn Lynch gets you there. Marshawn Lynch bumps him out. Yes.
He played in the decade.
Yes. And I think Henry bumps him out. I think Henry has a more impressive career.
I would say
he has a 2,000.
Yeah, he did it.
He's got 2K.
Yep. Oh, and CJ 2K. Chris Johnson.
Priest. Yeah, you could argue more dominant but Priest doesn't have a long career, so you can't even hold that for him against CJ 2K. I'd put CJ 2K above him. In fact, you know what? I'll say this right now. He's definitely not the most dangerous Chiefs running back I've ever seen. Because in my lifetime, in the last 25 years, that's Jamal Charles.
Yeah, he was great. And I think he's of all running backs, if I'm not mistaken, I think Charles has the highest yards per carry of all running backs in the history of the sport.
If we're rolling with yards per carry as a really important stat in this consideration, yes.
How about this one? And I feel horrible about this. Priest Holmes versus Steven Jackson.
Yeah, the longevity, and again, the one thing that Priest Holmes really had is that he was a two-way back. But Steven Jackson caught 80 passes one year,
rushed for almost 11,000 yards.
11,000 yards. Had a season with 2,400 yards from scrimmage in one go, which is one of the highest numbers ever, alongside Christian McCaffrey's best seasons. Yeah, I'll take Steven Jackson over him.
I will too. So, okay, here's the thing. You can go to ESPN.com and you can read this story. It takes maybe 10 minutes, 7 minutes to read. But I'm telling you right now, it's a waste of time. We just wasted your time, but we came up with a better list.
You know what this is, Randy? I think we're running into, because the defense list is really good. And here's what it is. You need all these goofy numbers in analytics to quantify defense, but we have all the numbers we need to quantify offense. Stop overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
That's what we have, the offensive numbers. You guys did great on the defense, but you guys really boofed it on the offensive numbers, even the offensive line. I'm trying to poke holes in the defense, Randy, and honestly, I think they did a really good job on this one.
Okay.
Like to your point, London Fletcher should probably be in over Levante David or Bobby Wagner. Because of what he did. I'll acquiesce to Urlacher, Kuechly, and Ray Lewis. It's hard to argue against those ones. I'm trying to think if we're missing any other linebackers. Clay Matthews was pretty good, but no, he wouldn't be up there. I don't think we're missing any linebackers. They did good on defense. Darrell Revis, Champ Bailey, Rondé Barber, Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, all great cornerbacks.
Yep.
I don't have any issue there. They killed it on the defensive side, but man, the offensive side of the ball is a travesty in this article.
It's not great. I'm going to do one more here.
Okay, here we go.
Talk amongst yourselves.
You know what? This could be Ben. Mike Evans has 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Should he be on the practice squad for wide receiver? Mike Evans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He and that. Listen, we'll give them credit. Wide receiver is a hard debate to have, but you guys screwed up a pretty easy debate with running back, so I'm not giving you any space on that one.
Okay. Let me give you one more about Priest Holmes. Okay, and
Jesus.
so
Taking him down.
Yeah, and again, I don't understand.
He's also the only guy of this group who was considered a backup at any point in his career. Like LT, Marshall, Adrian Peterson. At no point was somebody going, yeah, we can play this guy for 8 games and not give him a single carry.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's just go because he started in 2001 with the Chiefs. Basically, didn't play for the Ravens.
Yeah, right.
So 2001 through 2007 with Kansas City.
He had 3 good years.
He had 1,321 yards. Or no, I'm sorry, 1,321 attempts, and he had 6,070 yards. A 1,321 for 670, and the team you play on tells you a lot about the touchdowns you score. But he did score 76 touchdowns. Okay, so let's just go 6,070 yards, 76 touchdowns, 4.6 per carry. Okay. Player B, also in the decade, had 5,404 yards. So Holmes 6,070 and that was
1,321.
Let me give you the yards per game. 93.4 for Holmes. Player B, yards a game. Actually, not as dramatic as I thought. It's only 69.1, but scored 67 touchdowns,
76 or 76 plus receiving touchdowns, 7, so 70 or 83 total touchdowns for Priest.
Yep, and this player led the league in touchdowns twice with Priest. 13 and 17.
And Priest did as well with 24 and 27.
Okay. This player was Todd Gurley. First team All-Pro in 2017 and 2018. He was second in the MVP voting in 2017. And his yards per attempt, 4.2. Priest with the Chiefs was 4.6. So, yeah, you'd probably take Priest, but not by a significant margin over Todd Gurley.
Also, to your point, we don't want to focus on it, but we do need to say they're not on the list. You could argue if you go a little bit deeper, they could be on the list, but Willie Roaf and Brian Waters are on the line in front of him blocking, which certainly helps if you're Priest Holmes. And you could argue that Willie Roaf and Brian Waters could be in the discussion for maybe not left tackle because of how good the left tackles are, but Steve Hutchinson and Alan Faneca, you could put Brian Waters in that discussion.
Absolutely. And Will Shields.
Yeah, and Will Shields, yes. Oh, yeah, I forgot that. They had Will Shields too. You're right. Great offensive lines in front of Priest Holmes.
Yep, that's Dick Vermeula had a tendency to build those. So anyway, it's a fun discussion, and they did get us discussing. Don't forget, by the way, that we have STL Sports Central, Card Central 365 coming up today before the game, and then tonight after the Cardinals play the White Sox at the Rate in Chicago. And hopefully with Sonny Gray on the mound, the Cardinals can come away with another victory. And thanks to our friends at Hot Shots for bringing you post-game coverage. STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. This has been fun, sir.
Absolutely, it has been.
So I'm going to be on the show tomorrow, but I'm going to be on remote, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have just an interesting program. We'll see how it works. We'll see how Randy can set up a remote. Okay, but we'll start by what, 10:04?
Yeah, 10:04.
Yeah, good.
At least.
We thank you for being a part of the show. Don't forget, you can always find us on every platform that you get a podcast at, and you can always find us here on YouTube as well. It's STL Sports Central. It's the Randy Karraker Show, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone.